In this, I will present the motivation to what is the need of learning this intrusion detection and prevention systems. First of all, we'll see the network security problems, because this particular course is targeted for the layman. That means who have a basic understanding of basic knowledge of operating system, computer networks, and the programming. So I'm going to start with by understanding that you are a layman to this course. You don't know anything about this course, and having only general knowledge of this operating system and networks. So that is the reason I am going to start from very basics and escalating to the higher level of this course. So let us assume that let A, B, and C are the computers in a network. So just to go through the diagrams here. Here A and B, whenever A wants to communicate with B, the normal flow of traffic will be like this. Either it may pass through a router, or maybe a switch, or maybe any other server, and will go to the B. Whenever an attack kind of thing called eavesdropping is taken place, the general communication will go on like this, but a malicious entity called C, which is also a computer, who is sitting outside of the network or maybe within the network, but he will keep on coming to know what is the traffic or what is the data sent by the A to B. So that means this eavesdropper will try to sniff what is happening on the communication channel between A and B. While coming to the modification, whenever this eavesdropper or a malicious entity sniffs the content, he may do some modification to the content, and he may send it back to the he may forward it back to the entity B. So that means this particular data is diverting to the malicious entity C, and this C is going to modify the content and then sending to the intended destination. This is called modification. Next is fabrication. Fabrication is nothing but eavesdropper know what is the address of A. Here in computer terminology, address in the sense the IP address. That is called Internet Protocol address. So this Internet Protocol address may be known to the C because of the eavesdropping. So what he will do is he will fabricate a packet by saying that this packet is coming from the A's address, because every packet that is the data that what we are going to send to the that will be sent to any system usually cannot be directly sent like that, but this data will be enclosed in a single unit called packet. That packet consisting of from address and to address. But what the C will do is, on that packet, the from address instead of the C address, he will place the A's address, and destination address, that is to address, as the B address, and he will send it. So this is what is called fabrication. Next one is a drop. Drop means the person C may be there. Then C, what he will do is, whenever he sniffs the packets or whenever he diverted the packets to himself, then obviously that packet is intended for B. But whenever the C or any other malicious intended person receives it, so instead of sending to B, simply he will drop it. So that means the packet will never reach the B. Next one is replay. Replay in the sense, whatever the content sent by A will be taken by the C, and the same content with some modifications or maybe as it is may be sent to B by C. So this is what is called replay attack. Next one is a jamming attack. Jamming attack in the sense Here, whatever content is to be sent from A to B will not be going to the B. However, C will jam the traffic which is going from A to B. Instead, C will try to send the package to B. So what is the difference between fabrication and jamming? So fabrication is nothing but A don't have any communication. Does not have started any communication to B. But C knows that what is the IP address of A, and C may fabricate a packet and say that this is the packet is from A and will be sent to B. So usually B don't have any validation procedure. Only it will look for from where it received, from where it is received. So obviously in that packet from address is the A's address. So obviously B will understand that okay, this packet has come from A. But in case of jamming, so see A will not start the A here also A will in this jamming A will start the communication to B, but however the attacker C will try to send a huge number of packets to B so that B will not be in a position to receive the packets received from A. Thereby the packets that is sent by A will be jammed, and sometimes it may not be if based upon the protocol used by A that package may be dropped. For example, if it is a UDP packet, then the packet will be dropped in case of there is no communication held, or if there exists any jamming or denial of service. So in case of TCP, what will happen is retransmission takes place. So based upon the type of packet that A has sent, so the C will send a huge number of packets to B, so that B will not be having any time to receive any other packet. Thereby, the jamming kind of thing will take place. So these are the general security problems that you can encounter in any computer networks or internet. Basically, this security concepts can be overcome, security problems can be overcome with the general cryptography methods. Usually, whenever any security is the word, whenever you listen, so obviously you will mainly focus on the cryptography and cryptology and this kind of things. So usually, the concept of network security can be dealt with confidentiality, integrity, authentication, triangle. So confidentiality is nothing but the message cannot be read by intermediaries. So here, who is the intermediary here? In case of diagram B, C is the intermediary. Here the sender is A and the receiver should be B, but the usurper is C. So what is this C is doing? He is trying to read the messages. So obviously this messages cannot be read by intermediaries. This confidentiality will be maintained by performing the perfect encryption mechanism. Encryption mechanism is nothing but converting the plain text to the non-understandable format. Next one is integrity. Identification of change in message, if any, between the sender and receiver can be easily identified. That means whenever modification is going to be happened, so whenever modification has happened, so obviously this A has sent a message and C is trying to modify the content. Whenever the modification has happened, then B should be in a position to detect easily that whether the message received from A is the original message or not. This is what we call integrity. That the integrity of the message will be checked at the receiving end. So this integrity is nothing but identification of change in message, if any, between sender and receiver. This can be achieved with the help of cryptographic hash functions. The cryptographic hash functions may be like SHA 256 or MD5. This kind of cryptographic hash functions may be used for achieving this integrity. Next one is authentication. Only valid recipient should be able to read the message. That means if you are sending, or if A is sending the message to B, only B should be in a position to decrypt it and should be in a position to read it. So this is what we call authentication. This authentication will be maintained or can be achieved with the help of key management. That means public key and private key, or any key that is going to be shared between the sender and receiver. With that key only, if a valid key is there, then only the content can be decrypted and can be read by the receiver. Next one is non-repudiation. Non-repudiation means sender cannot deny the sending of the message. That means if A has sent a message to B later time, whenever B asks, then A should not be in a position to deny that this is not the message sent by me. So this is what we call non-repudiation property. So how can you assure that A is the only one has sent the message or a particular message? So this is the property called non-repudiation. This can be achieved with the help of digital signature. Next one is availability. Assurance that unused services or resources is able to legitimate users. So that means unused services or resources is available to the legitimate users. So only the legitimate users can be in a position to access the resources of the system. Anonymity, assurance that the identity of some party is remain anonymous. That means the anonymous means in the sense the identity, especially what is the ID of a particular sender or the receiver. This kind of things, identities. Usually, any communication will happen with the help of identity. These identities must be kept anonymous so that it will not be disclosed in the public domain. So this is what we call anonymity. These are the general properties that we can achieve with the help of general cryptography methods. However, cryptography methods are not the standalone, or is not a permanent solution for any security problem. We can say that cryptography methods we can defend or we can perform defense up to some extent, but still taking the advantage of the protocol functioning and characteristics of the communication medium, there is a possibility that attackers may include some specialized traffic or some specialized things in the network traffic, so that that particular inclusion may enter into the system and may damage the computers. So that is the reason we require a second level of defense, which are called as intrusion detection and prevention systems. So whatever the general cryptography and network security that you have studied at your previous semesters, or maybe at any other level, are the first line of defense. Those are only the first line of defense. So you can think of in any war-like situation, there is a line of situation which will guard the soldiers, or which will guard the particular region. Then once it was crossed, then the second line of defense will react and will try to defend them. So like that, in any organizational network or internet networks, the first line of defense is your cryptography and network security, and the second line of defense is intrusion detection and prevention systems. Let us see what are the different real-world security attacks that are possible, that are available, that are mostly will happen in the real world. So that is unauthorized access to the resources, such as disclosure, modification, and destruction of resources. Distributed denial of service attacks. So previously we have seen the jamming attack. Jamming attack is a kind of denial of service attack. If many malicious intended systems is trying to make a target to make it as a jam, or to make it as a denial of service, then it is to be distributed denial of service attack. Next is worms and virus attacks, injection of worms and viruses. So usually viruses will spread. Okay, so that means it will replicate itself and will go to the entire network. So next one is monitoring and capturing of network traffic, such as user identities, passwords, and other informations often stolen on the internet. that is stealing of credentials, etc. Exploration of software vulnerability, compromising systems, authentication bypasses, data-driven attacks, like importation of malicious or infected codes. So maybe it is possible with the help of the malicious browser alerts, or maybe downloads via browser, etc. Email forgery, website defacement, phishing attack, mobile-based attacks. That is recently attacks on the Android, iOS, and the Windows systems, and on the mobile phones. Next is SQL injection attacks, web application and server attacks, like cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, etc. These are the most commonly happening real-world security attacks. So all these things will happen. All these things are happening even though you have made a first line of defense in a perfect manner. That means unauthorized access to the resources. So usually here we go for making of the authorization matrix. Based upon the authorization matrix, the authorization will take place. But because of some vulnerability present in that, attacker will try to exploit the vulnerability by sending his own fabricated packets or his own fabricated data or something, so that that particular vulnerability will be exploited. So worms and viruses, exploitation of software vulnerability, compromising the system, authentication bypass. Even though you have a valid, you have made an authentication protocol, but still this can be bypassed. So for this, there is no rule that even though the first line of defense is there, authentication bypass is not possible. So obviously, this authentication bypass is generally possible because of the exploiting of the protocol functionality, characteristics, and any vulnerability present in the system. So this is what the thing. Finally, you come to know that that is the first line of defense, like cryptography, network security, is good, but it is itself is not sufficient to guard the entire organization. So how this particular security attack can be categorized? Basically, the security attacks can be categorized into two categories. One is passive attacks, and second one is active attacks. The eavesdropping is there. That eavesdropping is a passive attack. That means that the eavesdropper is not doing any harm to the ongoing traffic. Okay, he is simply sniffing the content, like traffic analysis, who is talking and who is sending and who is receiving. Just he sniff the content. But these passive attacks may lead to the active attacks. How? Because of the sniffing, the attacker will come to know that who is sending, what is his IP address, who is receiving, what is his IP address. So that is the reason with the sniffing content, the attacker, that is eavesdropper, we can say here, can perform jamming attack, can capture and modify, can be considered as a pretending. That means he will fabricate a packet on the name of A and will send to B. That means here it is pretending that C is pretending as A because because C knows the A's IP address. So this is pretending. So this is the way, because of the passive attacks, the active attacks may be performed. So the reason it is also important to know who is passively performing this attack. So this may be done. This may be identified with the help of the intrusion detection prevention systems, and even at the active level of attacks also. If the general security system fails, this intrusion detection and prevention systems will be in a position to identify any active attack possible. So that means IDS can do these both of the tasks. That means who is performing sniffing, or who is trying to attempt sniffing on our network, that can also be detected, and the attacking features can also be detected by the intrusion detection and prevention. To have perfect motivation with this, so far we have seen general security attacks and what is the impact of those security attacks and all. Now we'll see the Computer Emergency Response Team Government of India report 2019-20. In this report, the Computer Emergency Response Team has listed. This particular report can also be can be found over the internet also. You may download it. It may be of 10 pages or something. So they have given the security incidents handled by the Computer Emergency Response Team, Government of India, is 3,94,499 for the year 2019. So after handling the security incidents, security alerts issued are 202, advisories published are 38, vulnerability notes published 204, training organized to overcome these security problems are 23 to the particular year 2019. That means the CERT identified on India, the Indian servers and Indian government servers, around 3,94,499 suspicious activities were held in the year 2019. How they can detect this? They can detect only with the help of this intrusion detection and prevention systems. Because from past 5 years, the India has undergone huge digitalization. Before that, there is no that much digitalization. Now everything is digitalized. So when everything is digitalized, in the sense the data will be stored in the computer servers or database servers. So the data is so precious. Data itself is so precious. So this data is required for the enemy countries. So they will give the they may contract some professional hackers and will try to extract or to try to rob the particular data so that they can be analyzed at their end and they can plan the destruction strategies. Here, the destruction strategies is not by firing arms or some other thing. However, by pumping the money into the countries, even in the form of the applications, in the form of manufacturing products, in terms of financial terms, in terms of the corporate, in terms of many other things. So whenever over dependency of is there in any country, obviously the country has to bind to the other countries. So obviously they want this particular data to increase the over dependency of the enemy countries. So that is the reason India has started this CERT team, that is Computer Emergency Response Team, 4 years back. They are especially vigorously they're trying for getting the information that what are the attacks that are happening on the computer servers in India. So this is a very good place in government sector where you can focus a job if you are a computer security analyst and every year they are going to announce some jobs related to the information security managers, etc. Last year and before last year also they have placed around 200 to 250 entries for the information security officers at the junior level. That means the age, there will be age factor of around 27 years is the maximum age, like that. So the young graduates who are proficient in the or who are having the basic knowledge of the penetration testing, ethical hacking, network and security can apply and can appear for the exam. So among this 3,94,499 security incident handles, in this phishing attacks are 472, unauthorized network scanning, probing or vulnerability services are like 3,55,276, viruses and malicious code injections like 62,163, website defacement. Website defacement in the sense you are going to, that is the attacker is going to capture the website and he will replace the web page with whatever he intended for, whatever he wants to place in that. That means capturing a web page and they will place their slogans or maybe their national flag or whatever the thing. So they will place there. This is called website defacement. So 24,366 incidents of the website defacement was found in the year 2019. So website intrusion and malware propagation 417, others are 1,805. All put together 3,94,499. So this detection strategies, see this much, this was only handled or caught by the intrusion detection and prevention systems at the central servers, like a CERT servers, or the information come to know by the CERT. But some of the organizations may not be linked to CERT. Then what is the situation? If you are having an organization, if you want to maintain your own IDS and IPS, how to perform? Because your organization may be a startup organization or maybe a thing that may not be linked to the CERT, or you may inform CERT, but CERT will provide you solution. However, but there may be some attacks that may be left over. So you can put around 1 to 1.5 lakhs kind of attacks that kind of attacks that are not reported. So these are the only reporting solutions. These are the reporting only reported incidents. So that means if all these reporting incidents are successful, then you can think of huge what is the loss will happen to the country. This is what the motivation behind the need of the intrusion detection and prevention systems. If you look at the summary of incident handled by CERT during 2019, this is a pie chart which is having these various attacks possible. Next is number of defacements. On you look at here on .com 6,388 and .in websites. That means they are mainly focusing on Indian sites, so which are with the Indian domain as the Indian domain. That is 17,279 are web defacements. .org very little, .net is very little, and others are 32. That means they're mainly focusing. The attackers are mainly focusing on the Indian servers. That is the servers which are launched in India with the .in as the domain name. And this is the graph related to the botnet removal tools downloaded by the users because of the botnets and bloatwares. So this is the graph. It's slowly increased and decreased here. Actually, in June it was decreased in 2019, but it keep on increasing by the end of December. Next is botnet events tracked by the Botnet Clearing and Malware Analysis Center at CERT is also like that. So almost it is almost equal. Okay, that number of the graph is also almost equal. That means they have identified, and obviously accordingly that means they are in synchronous with the people's mind. That means the people also identify. That is the common public also identify some bots are there, bloatwares are there. So they are downloading the bloatware tools. And same time, the CERT also identified the same kind of attacks. So next is these are the top vulnerabilities detected by the SANS Institute, which is a very famous security institute. So these are the top vulnerabilities in Windows system, like web servers, workstation services, Windows remote access services. Like that, various other vulnerabilities which is related to the Unix system, like especially on the domain name system, web server authentication versus version control and all. So these are the various vulnerabilities by the mentioned by the SANS Institute. And here, Open Web Applications, Open Source Web Application Service Project, OWASP, has declared some top 10 vulnerabilities in the web applications, like injection, broken authentication, sensitive data exposure, broken access control, security misconfiguration, cross-site scripting, insecure deserialization, and using components with known vulnerabilities, insufficient logging and monitoring. These are the top 10 vulnerabilities with respect to the internet servers, and that is the web applications and web servers. So which is here, these are the vulnerabilities related to the operating systems, and these are the vulnerabilities related to the web application web servers. So that means web servers and web applications will work at the network level, and these are the vulnerabilities that can be exploited at the operating system level. So these are the intrusion detection systems that are required to identify these vulnerabilities are the host-based intrusion detection systems. That means which are pertaining to a host. While coming to this network level, network-based intrusion detection systems, which will identify the network-level vulnerability. So that means in IDS also there are two categories: host-based intrusion detection systems and network-based intrusion detection systems. So according to the server that what you are going to launch or that we are going to monitor, we are supposed to place such a related intrusion detection system at that system, that is at the server. So this is the way we are supposed to use the IDS depending upon the place where you want to identify the vulnerabilities. So in this way, we have the various vulnerabilities that are detected at the host level and at the network level. Whenever we come to the host level in the sense at the system level, that is at the computer level. At the computer, we may use the Windows operating system or Linux operating system. But from version to the version of the various operating systems of the same type, that is either Windows or Linux, have some vulnerabilities. Maybe via design, it may happen via design, or it may happen via some program faults, or maybe because of the addition of new applications and new features into the operating system, the vulnerabilities may also be introduced. So whenever these vulnerabilities are there, obviously the attackers will try to exploit that vulnerabilities and will try to gain the system access. So here, these are the list of vulnerabilities that are provided by the SANS Institute with respect to the operating system. While coming to the web application security, so here injections, especially the SQL injection, LDAP injection, NoSQL, OS command injection, these are the various injections usually popularly will be done by the attackers. And broken authentication, application functions related to authentication and session management are often implemented incorrectly. Because of that also, the attacker will try to gain the access of or to gain the control over the authentication process. Next is sensitive data exposure. Sometimes web applications are not completely written in a perfect manner. So sometimes the APIs that are used for writing the web applications do not properly protect the sensitive data. That sensitive data may also be exposed whenever they try to browse it, or they will go for code inspection via view source code or something. So then thereby the attacker will come to know what is the sensitive data that can be accessed in the web server or web application. Next is XML external entities. Many older or poorly configured XML processes evaluate external entity references within the XML documents. So this is what the XML external entities. So usually XML documents are processed. Okay, actually instead of processing, we can say it is as a parsed. So because there will be a document, there will be a specific syntax, or there will be a structure will be there. So according to the structure that XML documents were structured or not will be checked in this. That structure is said to be document type definition. You can say DTD. So this document type definition will be is just like the syntax of a structure. Whether that syntax have been perfectly followed or not will be parsed. So for this, we may use the parsing packages, or we may use some other methods like document object model or simple API for XML for going for the processing of the XML documents. So many older and poorly configured XML processes evaluate external entity references within the XML documents, so that external entity references may pose some malicious threats. So thereby the same threat can also be inherited into the XML entities. Next one is broken access control. Restriction on what authenticated users are allowed to do are often not properly enforced. Thereby also this broken access control will happen. Thereby access control will be violated, and escalating of the privileges will happen. Security misconfiguration. Security misconfiguration is the most commonly seen issue in many of the security systems, because many of the security engineers maybe because of their work pressure or some other thing, they usually ignore the default configurations. So usually default configurations will pose the security threats, because if you look at if you purchase a router and connect to your computer and get the internet out of that, then if you want to access the router, the default username and password is admin only, or admin123. So these are the default things. If ever the default things were left like that only, so attacker will first try with the default things. If the default is successful, then the system will be the system or device can be hacked easily. So this security misconfigurations or default configuration leftovers, these kind of things will be the entry points for the attacker to target the to target the device. Next one is cross-site scripting. This cross-site scripting flaws occur whenever an application includes uh, untrusted data in the new web page without proper validations or escaping. So this kind of thing is resulting into this cross-site scripting. Next one is insecure deserialization. So serialization means it is just like what you call serialization and deserialization is the way of injecting the or saving the data. So insecure deserialization often leads to remote code execution. Uh, Obviously, remote code execution in the sense you will run a command so that the command will be executed at the remote system, either maybe on the database server or maybe on the operating system. Thereby, the remote code execution, maybe the code executed, maybe a virus file or a worm file or maybe some critical files. So thereby, the that may be exploited and the system may be hacked. So using components with the known vulnerabilities, basically some softwares and some versions will be having default vulnerabilities, which are called as known vulnerabilities. Usually, there are two categories of the vulnerabilities: known vulnerabilities and zero-day attacks. So zero-day attacks are the very brand new vulnerabilities that are not discovered so far. And known vulnerabilities are one which are exposed and exploited by many attackers. This is called known vulnerabilities. Usually, the known vulnerabilities will be listed on the vulnerability databases. You can go to any of the vulnerability database and you can find the vulnerability information. So using components with known vulnerabilities. So you know that that particular component uses will be having some vulnerability, but still, if you are trying to use that in the development of the application or the software, obviously that will pose the vulnerabilities. If the vulnerability was identified by the attacker, then it is not a big task for him to exploit it. So components such as libraries, frameworks, and other software modules run with the same privileges as the application. A best example is buffer overflow attack. Buffer overflow attack is nothing but using the unlimited space, memory space. So strcpy, strcat, or string copy, this kind of functions which are there in the C programming will be having the functions or will be having uh, the property that they will work with the dynamic memory. That means you can allot any size of the memory for that. So thereby, whenever any size memory is allocated, obviously the memory will be overfilled. Thereby, buffer overflow attacks may happen. So insufficient logging and monitoring. So whenever any activity happened, either it may be a web application or web server or maybe a database server or maybe any server kind of thing, basically what they will do is they will keep track of the events that are happening in the system. Either it may be operating system or it may be a server or it may be a web application, web server or it may be any other thing. So most of the service provider things will keep track of the log. So that means every event that was happened or that is communicating with the system must be recorded and monitored. This is called logging and monitoring. So it is just like in a society, at the entry of any society, there is a watchman, and that watchman will keep track of who is coming inside and who is going out, and he will maintain a logbook. So at what time which person entered and how much time he spent, what is his mobile number, for to whom he is going to contact, and remaining other details he will make note in the logbook. Like that, every system will maintain a log. So insufficient logging and monitoring coupled with a missing or inefficient integration with the incident responses may also lead to the security attacks. So these are the security risks that are available, that are listed as the top 10 security vulnerabilities or security risks in the web application. So general security mechanism that is going to be applied nowadays is first prevention. Prevention is always better than cure. Okay, so the prevention can be done via general cryptography methods in general. Second one is by using the firewalls. That is, firewall is also a mechanism which will allow you that is whatever the services required and what are the ports to be visible and what are the ports can be communicated. This kind of rules you can make in the firewall. So this is firewall is one prevention mechanism that we can use in our computers. So many of the operating systems will come with the inbuilt firewalls, and you may also install the external firewalls. And these firewalls may be software oriented and hardware also. So hardware firewalls will be there, which are especially placed in the demilitarized zone. That we'll discuss when we discuss the DMZ concept. So mostly everyone know the firewalls of the operating system, especially like Microsoft Defender and Microsoft firewalls. That we all know that it will detect easily any malicious activity happening with the computer. Next one is authentication and authorization, just as we have seen in the computer networks and security. That is with the help of confidentiality, authentication, and integrity. So that CIA triangle will be used here. And one more thing is any communication will happen with the help of the IP address in computer networks. So there is a security attached with the IP address, which is called IPsec. So this IPsec may be used along with the virtual private networks, so that it will also enhance the security mechanism. Thereby, you can prevent the attacks, especially like eavesdropping attack and sniffing and this kind of attacks. Next one is access control. So access control matrix should be very perfectly implemented. Then the privilege escalation cannot be possible. Next, finally, encryption. So this encryption, authentication, and authorization. These are the things which are especially related to the computer cryptography and network security. So what is the difference between here authorization and authentication? So authorization and authentication. So what is the meaning of this? So in order to have authorization, you must be authenticated first. So authentication does not mean that authorization, and authorization does not mean authentication. And here, if for example, you are having a valid identity card, and you can have an entry into the university campus. That means if you are having a valid identity card, then you are authenticated. That means you are authentic person to enter into the campus. But if you want to go into a server room, so there will be restriction that even though you are authenticated person entered into the campus, but you are not authorized to enter into the server room. That means authorization require authentication, but does not mean that you are having a authorization to do something. So this is what they call authorization and authentication. This is what the difference between these. So that is what the prevention. Prevention is always at the higher level. So always whenever this prevention, even though this prevention measures is not sufficient, then the attacks may be penetrated into the system. When the attacks are penetrated into the system, then here the detection comes into the picture. So this detection can be done with the help of auditing, because every device will maintain a log. So this auditing of the logs may reveal the attack procedures or attack patterns. Next one is misuse detection. So misuse detection is one thing that usually like how far the user have used the application correctly, and how far the user have entered the username and password correctly. So these kind of things are going to be misuse detection. In this misuse detection, especially they will check for the user's failure to access the known application. So this is what is called misuse detection. Next one is anomaly detection. Anomaly is nothing but it's an abnormal entity. Anomaly is an abnormal entity or abnormal thing. That means there is a pattern in any traffic. If you look at any TCP traffic or UDP traffic or any other traffic, obviously there will be a pattern. That means first preamble will come, then afterwards the size of the data will come, then protocol will come, then IP address will come. So like that, there is a fixed pattern will be there. But if there exists any deviation in the pattern, so then it will be considered as the anomaly. So whenever this anomaly comes, immediately the detectors, that is the intrusion detection systems, will raise an alarm. Okay, will raise an alarm and will say that the mismatch or wrong pattern matched or wrong pattern observed. So this kind of alarm will be raised. So that immediately the system administrator has to focus on that and has to record it and go for treating of the particular pattern, or go for identification of the pattern, why the particular pattern came in the wrong position. And next, in the detection, again, at the host level, you may use intrusion detection, host-based intrusion detection systems. At the network level, you may also use network-based intrusion detection systems. So these are the detection strategies that we will use. A best example is this SNOT database, SNOT intrusion detection system that can be used at the host level or maybe at the network level. That same SNOT can also be installed on the small devices like Arduino and Raspberry Pi and many other small scale devices also. On small scale devices also, you can use this SNOT. So in our course, we'll see the SNOT IDS because it is very flexible and can be used on any device configuration, ranging from the server level to the small scale level. Next one is survive or response. So survive or response here, this survive or response can be done either manually by system administrator or maybe via the antivirus and internet security that was placed there. So that means, see, look at these are the levels of defenses. Okay, so the prevention will try to prevent many kind of attacks. Even though the wall is too big, but still some attacks can penetrate into the systems. Here, the detection mechanisms will try to identify many things, and the impact of the attacks that is at the prevention level can be somewhat reduced at the detection level. And if the detection is very perfect, very few or one or two may enter into the system level. There immediately, with the help of antiviruses and internet security, we can identify that particular responses, and we can respond to that particular attacks. So this is what the thing. And finally, even after placing the intrusion detection system also, you cannot say that your system is 100% perfect, because many of the intrusion detection systems will work either via auditing or either via misuse detection or either via anomaly detection or via rule pattern or behavior pattern. But some attacks will be there which are like on-off attacks. They will work fine. That means the traffic will go fine for some time, then abnormal, then again fine, again abnormal. So this kind of on-off attacks, if the attacker was fired, then sometimes the the intrusion detection systems sometimes may miss those things and may allow them to into the networks. So like that, many other attacks are there that we'll see in the course in detail. For certain kind of attacks, intrusion detection systems will fail to identify, but such attacks can be detected with the help of intelligent framing of the rules in the intrusion detection systems. That is the part 5 of this course, where we'll go for intelligent forming of or intelligent observation of the computer network traffic, and from there we are going to extract the patterns, and within the no time the system will be in a position to detect whether it is an exactly attack or not. So this is what we call detection strategies that we are going to use in our in general in any organization, and also we are going to study all these things in our course.